The boy picked up a handful of sand and directly poured it onto the little nanny's belly button. The little nanny thought the boy was just being playful. In fact, the boy had already taken a liking to the beautiful nanny. He thought about having a child with her every day. Although the little boy appeared to be only 3 years old, he was actually 20 years old. All his organs had already fully developed. The little nanny didn't know the boy had dwarfism, and every day, she would change clothes in front of him, and sometimes even climb into his bed at night. This triggered the boy's growing curiosity during his puberty. At first, the little nanny thought it was just a child being playful, but gradually, she began to feel something was wrong. Oscar became the way he is today because of an event that happened when he was 3. He accidentally discovered a secret. His usually kind cousin was secretly seducing his mother, and they would often do immoral things in front of Oscar. For a 3-year-old like Oscar, it was hard to understand. He felt that the adult world was too complicated, and that it would be better not to grow up at all. So, during a gathering, Oscar resolutely jumped from a 3-meter-high staircase. Soon, the little boy was found. Rolling down the stairs injured his spine, and he ended up staying in the appearance because of this accident. Oscar also gained a superpower. Whenever he screamed a sharp, high-pitched sound, the glass around him would instantly shatter. From then on, Oscar would carry around a tin drum every day. Even during class, he would keep on drumming. When the teacher tried to take it from him, he was met with Oscar's magical ability. The teacher called Oscar's mom, which made him even angrier. With a fierce scream, he shattered the teacher's glasses. Helpless, his mom could only take him to see a doctor. This elderly doctor, with 50 years of medical experience, initially claimed that there was no disease he couldn't treat. But when he saw Oscar's sound wave power, he was immediately shocked. Because Oscar had a form of dwarfism, he couldn't play with children his age. Gradually, his classmates began to see Oscar as a freak, and they teamed up to bully him. Oscar was already a rather solitary child, and now, with the bullying, he didn't even want to go to school. His mother had no choice but to hire an elegant tutor. Soon, Oscar discovered a secret. Every time his mother took him shopping, she would leave him in a store and quickly leave the area. As Oscar grew older, he began to understand more and more. So one day, he secretly followed her, and what he saw shocked him. It was his cousin with his mother. What were they doing together? At this point, Oscar, now a teenager, couldn't be kept in the dark. He climbed up to the clock tower across from them and used his sound wave power again. The glass around them shattered instantly, knowing Oscar had ruined their plans. His mom angrily took him home. Once they got home, it was as if nothing had happened. Oscar's dad seemed to have known about their affair for a long time. One day, he pulled an animal's skull out of the sea and poured a lot of fish from inside. This sight immediately disgusted Oscar's mom, and she threw up. It seemed like Oscar's dad was intentionally seeking revenge on her. Later, he brought the fish to the dinner table, and when mom saw the fish, she had a physiological reaction. But dad insisted, demanding she eat the fish. Mom cried out in anger, only to be comforted by her kind older cousin. Soon after, Oscar's mom discovered she was pregnant, but she wasn't sure whose child it was. When she saw Oscar, she felt even more guilty, because she wasn't sure whose child Oscar was either. Before Oscar was born, she had already been with her cousin, but in those days, close relatives couldn't marry, so she married someone else without thinking too much. Now, pregnant again, her guilt grew even stronger. She began binge eating and soon died from food poisoning. On the day of her funeral, Oscar just kept playing his tin drum as if the person who had died was a stranger to him. Years later, World War II broke out. The war spread across the country, and at that moment, Oscar's cousin became a prisoner of war. Oscar lost another family member until one day, his grandmother brought him a new nanny, which completely changed his life. The little nanny still treated Oscar like a little child, and the two would play together every day. She would even change clothes in front of him, never hiding from him. But although Oscar appeared to be only 3, he was actually 20 years old. He noticed every little gesture the nanny made, and in his adolescence, his thoughts began to drift in another direction. One day, when Oscar's dad was out, the little nanny, afraid that a 3-year-old wouldn't sleep alone, climbed into Oscar's bed to coax him to sleep. She took out a package of candy. This candy would turn into liquid as soon as it touched water. The two of them had a lot of fun together. But when Oscar crawled under the covers, the nanny thought he was just playing. What she didn't know was that Oscar had already matured. They spent a wonderful night together. Oscar thought this was love. But the next day, he suddenly discovered that the nanny had already been with his father. Furious, Oscar tried to stop it. But what was meant to happen still happened. The nanny became his stepmother. Oscar, in his anger, punched her in the stomach. Not long after, the nanny's belly began to swell. Oscar wasn't sure if the baby inside her was his brother. One day, when the nanny was asleep, he secretly took a pair of scissors. Although Oscar was over 20, his body was still that of a 3-year-old child. After a while, the baby inside the nanny was born. Everyone thought Oscar had gained a new brother, but only he didn't think so. He was sure the baby was his son. One day, Oscar encountered a theater troupe. Oscar instantly fell in love with one of the actresses, Anna. He quickly used his scream to express his feelings for her. Anna, amazed by Oscar's ability, invited him to join the troupe. From then on, Oscar left his chaotic family behind and performed with the troupe using his sound wave powers, but suddenly, the city was bombed. Oscar and Anna quickly hid under a table. In that moment, the two of them sparked a romantic connection. Oscar finally felt what love was like, and he completely forgot about the nanny's betrayal. But good times are always short-lived. With the enemy advancing into the city, they had to move to a safer city. Before leaving, Anna wanted to have a cup of coffee. At that moment, a shell exploded and Anna was torn to pieces, devastated. Oscar felt it was pointless to stay with the theater troupe. So he returned home. Oscar hadn't forgotten his promise. So he bought some tin for his brother or his son. The nanny was furious at Oscar's return because his departure had caused a lot of trouble at home. But his father was happy as he might also be Oscar's father. They thought life would be better from then on. But one day, the enemy stormed their basement and, in front of them, violated Oscar's aunt. The nanny covered her son's eyes, and Oscar, realizing they had no way out, gave his dad a fatal badge. He knew that being discovered by the enemy meant certain death, so he quickly swallowed the badge. But it got stuck in his father's throat. The enemy, sensing something was wrong, shot his father dead. Soon after, they held a simple funeral for his dad, and Oscar buried the precious tin bone with him. At that moment, a stone struck Oscar. When he woke up, he found that his body had returned to normal. From then on, he could grow like a normal person. In the final scene, the nanny took her son, along with Oscar's father or brother, and left for a city without war. The film ends.